In a time when China was still fractured into small states that watched one another with suspicion, when the dust of war horses was seen more often than the faces of children in village streets, there lived a general whose name was never shouted across the battlefield, yet was always whispered among royal advisors. He was not the highest in rank, nor the most feared for cruelty. But whenever a war ended, he stood among the ruins with one thing intact. His soldiers were still alive, and his land was still breathing. His name was Sun Liang. He was not born into nobility. His father was merely a military storehouse clerk, an old man who spent his life recording amounts of grain, iron, and cloth for war and died without recognition. Yet from that worn wooden desk, the young Sun Liang learned something essential. Wars are not won by swords, but by preparations no one sees. He witnessed how a single error in numbers could starve thousands of soldiers, how one delayed supply line could break an army that was still physically strong. From an early age, he learned to read war not through bloodshed, but through the silent causes behind it. When he reached adulthood, the land he lived in, the small state of Wu, stood on the edge of collapse. Two powerful neighbors, the state of Han to the north and the state of Chu to the south, both coveted Wu's fertile territory. The king of Wu was a man easily shaken, more inclined to trust the loudest voices in the royal hall than clear reasoning. His generals shouted for more troops, more weapons, more direct assaults. They wanted to display strength because they believed strength was everything. Sun Liang stood quietly in the corner of the hall. When the king finally asked for his opinion, he did not answer immediately. He asked for maps. He asked for weather reports. He asked for harvest data, the condition of the people, and trade routes. The nobles scoffed. They called him a coward, weak, lacking the spirit of a warrior. But the king, who feared death more than anyone else, allowed him to speak. Sun Liang said softly, "If we go to war now, we will lose, not because our army is weak, but because we have not won before the war begins." The hall fell silent. He then explained that Han's army was strong in numbers, but fragile in logistics. They depended on long supply lines from the north. Chu's forces, on the other hand, had high morale, but were accustomed to quick victories and lacked patience for prolonged conflict. Wu, though small, held advantages no one noticed: marshlands, narrow rivers, and people who knew every hidden path. War, he said, is not about who strikes the hardest, but who is forced to strike the least. The king hesitated, but he had no better choice. Sun Liang did not order a massive mobilization. Instead, he trained the soldiers to retreat rather than advance. He ordered the construction of small, hidden storage depots in villages instead of large, visible fortresses. He spread false rumors of disease in Wu's territory, discouraging outside traders from entering. Everything was slowed deliberately, as if Wu were slowly dying. The state of Han laughed. Confidently, they sent their troops, believing one decisive strike would be enough to crush Wu. But once their forces entered, narrow roads turned to mud. Wooden bridges collapsed one by one, and supplies never arrived on time. They were not attacked, nor confronted. They were simply allowed to grow tired, confused, and eventually turn against one another. Sun Liang understood a principle rarely grasped by young generals. An exhausted enemy will defeat itself without needing to be struck. Meanwhile, the state of Chu saw Han's hesitation and grew uneasy. They did not want Han to claim Wu's territory alone. But as they prepared to advance from the south, they heard reports that Wu was already close to collapse. They waited, hoping to take whatever remained. Sun Liang deliberately fed both enemies false hope, forcing them to wait, to doubt, and to weaken one another. Month after month passed. Han's troops began to run out of food. Morale collapsed, disease spread. They never saw their enemy, yet felt defeated by something they could not fight. When they finally withdrew, Chu's forces saw Han's weakness and attacked them from behind. The two great states ended up fighting each other on land that was not theirs, while Wu stood between them, intact, without ever swinging a great sword. The king of Wu summoned Sun Liang and asked, "Was this luck?" Sun Liang replied, "Luck only comes to those who are ready to receive it." Years passed. Sun Liang never sought glory. He refused statues and rejected praise. He spent his time teaching young officers how to think, not how to attack. He said the greatest enemy was not another state, but one's own arrogance. Whenever an officer felt the urge to prove his strength, Sun Liang told him to reread reports of failure, not victories. One day, a student asked, "Master, should all wars be avoided?" Sun Liang smiled faintly. "No, but the best war is the one already won before the troops move. If the sword must be drawn, it means we failed to understand something earlier." Those words spread quietly, not as a doctrine of war, but as a way of living. Merchants began to use the principle to trade without destroying markets. Officials started resolving disputes without crushing the people. Even farmers learned that understanding the seasons mattered more than forcing the land. But the world never fully learned. After Sun Liang passed away at an old age, the state was again led by those who loved the sound of victory cries. Large wars erupted across regions once more. Yet strangely, whenever a small state endured longer than expected, whenever an army prevailed without heroic display, people knew someone there understood the same teaching. Not a teaching about how to kill, but about how to understand. For the heart of the art of war is not war itself, but the awareness that life is a series of small conflicts that do not always need to be resolved through force. Sometimes silence is more lethal than attack. Sometimes waiting is more strategic than advancing. Sometimes the greatest victory is when the opponent never realizes they have already lost. And within the fog of ancient Chinese history, the name Sun Liang may never be written in official records, yet his thinking lives on. In every wise decision not driven by emotion, in every victory not celebrated with blood, and in every leader who understands that mastering oneself is far more difficult than commanding thousands of troops. That is the true legacy of the art of war. Not how to destroy the enemy, but not how to destroy oneself when facing conflict.